Am I the butthole for telling my wife that the only reason she says money doesn't matter is because we're rich? I, 48 male, and my wife, 47 female, both have very well-paying jobs. I am a pediatric doctor and she's an attorney, which have allowed us and our kids, 20 female, 17 male, and 15 male, to have a more than comfortable lifestyle. My wife has a tendency to say things like money doesn't matter and that material things don't matter, and she says them all the time, which kind of irks me because she's right, but I was raised in a poor family, and I know that she wouldn't be saying the same thing if we were middle class. But I haven't said anything up until this morning. I had made a comment about needing a better watch, and my wife was saying her usual money doesn't matter. I told her that she was only saying that because we are rich and because she has never experienced being without money in any sense. Predictably, she got upset with me, and now I'm wondering if perhaps I overreacted and went too far. NTA. People who have always had money seem to be delusional about it. Money absolutely does matter when you're poor. NTA. Honestly, I don't hate rich people, but they are definitely naive about their privilege a lot. It gets annoying when you grew up not having what you needed/wanted because of poverty. It's also why I could never be super intimate with someone who grew up wealthy. It feels like they will never understand. FR had a debate on here a while back because some guy was saying it's simple to get money and that poor people are just lazy. His advice? Invest. Like bro, we literally have no money. We are one paycheck away from being homeless. Loads of well-off people seem to think we're just bad with money or lazy, when we're stuck in a system designed to keep us poor, extortionate rent, tax on everything, loans to get educated, extremely competitive job opportunities. Edit. Thanks for the awards. It's genuinely depressing to see how many people resonate with this comment. That reminds me of a debate I had with a guy who said they're probably poor because they live in an area with high rent and they should just move, and I tried to explain, moving costs money they don't have. And their response was just move your own boxes. Moving supplies alone for a family could cost over $100, and that might be too much for some people. I remember we would hoard bankers' boxes from my dad's office before a move. My mom went and got a ton of boxes from the liquor store when we moved. Started collecting them a month or two before we moved. Most liquor stores don't care about the boxes, they'll usually keep them out nowadays for people to take. Best part is that these boxes are stronger than usual because they're used for transporting heavy and mostly glass bottles. I also like to get the boxes that oil comes in from car dealerships. They're super reinforced and not too big to fill with heavy stuff. Good idea. Also, if you work in an office or know someone that does, ask for the boxes paper comes in. They are super sturdy and great for moving. They're also great for storing books and knickknacks as well. Yes. I love the size of those boxes, and that they have an actual lid instead of having to do the weird folding the flaps dance. Ask for laundry soap boxes from smaller retail shops/grocery stores, too. Definitely the reinforced and nearly waterproof variety of box. Since they're a pain to break down, ask the manager for a time to pick them up after stock day. Can confirm. I worked at a liquor store after high school and we saved all of our boxes in the storeroom. It was mostly for customers who bought bulk bottles, but we always gave them to people who came in for boxes too. I moved 3 times in my 20s with liquor store boxes and off-brand duct tape. Last time I moved I had dozens of liquor boxes. Neighbors must have thought I was an alcoholic. I work in a college library, and whenever a staff member is getting ready to move we save all the boxes that our printer paper and books came in for them. Those boxes are built to hold up. Having kids helped since baby wipe boxes are super sturdy, too. With twins, I had so many of those boxes by the time we got ready to move. I'm not poor and I still do this. Call ahead to department stores, they have huge boxes. Live near a college campus? Wait for move-in day. Live near a private college campus? You would be amazed at what rich kids toss in the dumpsters. Literally your old, perfectly functional futons, mini fridges, etc., called being thrifty. People with money stay rich by not spending it when they don't need to. People with money stay rich by having access to a wide array of resources, money being just one of them. Most poor people don't have access to those same resources. Sounds like you have a lot of time on your hands, a car to get around in, and feel safe enough in your city to be hanging out by dumpsters in a college campus area. Probably no kids either. Good for you though. People with money keep their money because they don't have to spend it. It's called the boots theory. If you have the money to buy a $50 pair of boots, they'll most likely last a long time. If you can't afford $50 boots, so you buy $10 boots to get by, they will wear out faster. By the time the $50 boots wear out, the person buying $10 boots will have already bought 10 pairs. So the person without money ends up spending more in the long run to barely survive. They literally can't afford the nicer ones up front that would save them money in the long run. That's what I did too. They would just let me take their empty boxes. And the spacers for bottles really helped when packing up my breakables. I hoarded advert flyers for a while instead of buying bubble wrap. Even if they didn't need to directly spend a penny to move, it'd still be expensive. Moving takes a lot of time. Having just made a big move, I can tell you tape and bubble wrap really adds up. Not to mention a moving truck to get it there. Getting out of poverty requires a lot of strategy that starts in like childhood with no margin for error. Add in application fees for a new rental, which alone can cost up to $300 to $400 depending on how many adults are included in the situation. Then add in a bare minimum of 1 month's first rent as a deposit, then your first month of rent, and some places even require your last month's rent up front as well. Moving isn't just boxes and bubble wrap. It's a whole lot of levels. Yeah, I don't understand everyone focused on the boxes here. The bigger issue is saving enough money for a deposit while still spending money on rent at your current place until you move. Spending $3,000 upfront to ultimately save $6,000 a year on rent obviously works out in the long run, but first you need the cushion in your budget to be able to save the $3,000 in the first place. In comparison to that, even a few hundred on a U-Haul, boxes, and bubble wrap is the least of it. Yeah. I learned to use my clothes, once not needed because it was summer or vice versa, as makeshift bubble wrap for anything needing extra padding and protection. Also kept every box things come in because they can be repacked that way with the styrofoam or packing stuff they came in. Edited to add that bedding also works, like pillowcases and blankets etc. Kitchen towels also work. My husband kept the boxes and styrofoam from all his electronics. It drove me nuts, until we moved for the first time. Then I was like, yeah, this is awesome. For that you need double the space, for things themselves and for boxes. Space is expensive. Yep. We did our move without a truck because we couldn't afford the cost of hiring one all in one go, and it worked out more expensive doing numerous trips in our own vehicle, but it was the only way we could do it. Rich people don't get that being poor is expensive. We have to buy the cheap stuff that doesn't last because the cheap shoes we have to replace twice a year are all we can immediately afford, and yet it would be cheaper long term to buy the more expensive shoes that last for 2 or 3 years, but we just don't have that money for them up front, and shoes are the kind of thing you need when you need them. It's just not a mentality that someone who's always been comfortable financially can ever understand. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Captain Sam Vimes, Night Watch. Who the hell can afford bubble wrap? Except Original Post apparently? We've moved so many times, and every time, since we could never afford that stuff, we've always used our clean clothes to wrap all the breakable items. I must be really poor. I wrap things in newspaper. We used to have to go to the backs of retail and grocery stores to find boxes they would throw away. I'm so glad in my adult life I am able to just flat out buy boxes I need, shrink wrap, bubble wrap and all the good stuff like strong tape. I've moved countless times with grocery store boxes, and even though at this point I can afford to buy boxes, the very idea horrifies me. I grew up poor, and the idea of paying money for something I can scavenge for free is just not something I can do. So grocery store boxes and U-Hauls forever. Yeah, pretty much everyone we know uses supermarket or liquor boxes to move house. To me, it's not a sign of poverty, it's just sensible. Why waste money on a resource that's already embarrassingly plentiful and free? Also, why waste resources of producing something that doesn't need to be produced? One thing I will say about buying moving boxes is that it's so much easier to stack them in the truck when they're all the same dimensions. We bought some cheap but good quality ones from Amazon, and it made everything easier. Of course, we were fortunate enough to be able to buy some, not everyone is. I'm with you. Bookstore boxes are amazing because they are designed to be super sturdy. Most retail used to let you have them if you asked. I don't know about now. I still have boxes from Borders in my basement. NTA. I like the saying money is like oxygen, you don't think about it when you have enough, but it's all you can think about when you don't have it. NTA. I've heard plenty of fortunate people say money doesn't buy happiness and all of those other cliché sayings. And in some ways they are right, but it can buy security, which brings peace of mind, which in itself allows you to focus on being happy. Statistically, having enough money to live in a secure situation, pursue your life goals, and weather emergencies is very important for one's psychological health. Money beyond that doesn't really matter, happiness-wise. In fact, it can decrease one's happiness. One may come to think of one's funds as a high score that one must increase in order to keep up with fellow wealthy people. Money can buy happiness. Riches cannot. NTA. But your wife is only a butthole very gently. It's difficult to understand and accept your privilege when you've grown up with it. I once said something akin to money doesn't matter or money doesn't buy happiness to a friend and got a proper lecture by a friend. It went somewhat like this: you only say money doesn't matter because you have it, it buys you a good university, nice holidays and good care altogether. These are things that make you happy/happier that you buy with the money that you say doesn't matter. That was a solid, easy to understand explanation by whoever gave it. I think it's always been easy to understand the correlation between money and happiness, but people use the money isn't everything excuse as some sort of virtue signal to show that they don't need it or they're just as well off without it. Not saying this is how Op's wife is using it, but like he said, people who already have money are the ones who say this the most and wouldn't understand how wrong that seems until they're broke. My mom always had a solid middle ground and said money buys you options. You still have to make the right choices, but having 1,000 options is always better than having 2. Money enables that. It's a private pet peeve of mine when my coworkers say it's impressive that I worked full-time while attending university, worked 3 a.m. to 12 p.m., attended school 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. I know they're just trying to pay me a compliment, but laughing my butt off. I wasn't doing it because I'm hardworking, I was doing it because I didn't have a choice. Agree. Money has a diminishing returns effect. Basically, as long as you have enough money so you don't have to worry about your basic needs, then you are privileged enough to say things like that. Money doesn't buy happiness, but lack of money makes for a lot of miserable people. Money doesn't buy happiness. That's on the list of lies I've been told regularly, with just ignore the bullies and they'll get bored. You can do anything you set your mind to and size doesn't matter. You make your own destiny is my favorite. Especially when told by a rich kid who just came back from a Thailand trip sponsored by their parents. Yep, there was a quote famous study a while ago showing that money does buy happiness up to about $70,000 per year or something, adjust for your local code of living, but beyond that it doesn't matter. Makes sense. Obviously it varies based on locale. For example, money in Montana will go a lot farther than downtown New York. And maybe the saying should be money buys lack of misery. Yeah, $70K in New York will barely get you approved for a walk-up studio. I have always said it this way: money may not buy happiness, but you know what poverty buys? Nothing. NTA. She's probably never had to think about it like that before, and pointing it out made her uncomfortable. Since it was bothering you, you're definitely not a butthole for pointing it out, and I honestly don't think she's a butthole for being upset, as long as she uses this as a chance to learn. If she continues to hold a grudge or something, then my answer would change. I think the devil's in the details here. He was talking about a watch and she said money doesn't matter? Was she talking about the cost of the watch doesn't matter, or was he wanting an expensive watch and she didn't think it should be expensive? I'm confused because stuff is missing from this. If he was a jerk about it, yes, he's the butthole. He should talk to her more about how he feels emotionally about money. But the actual story doesn't sound like she said anything wrong, and money is not important beyond sustenance in a lot of ways. This is a pretty common sentiment? I don't know. I need more info. That's what I'm wondering. He's the one discussing upgrading for something more expensive. I read her comment as more expensive isn't always better, not that she didn't appreciate that she is well off. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.